Hey, what is going on, guys? I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. I've made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat down and actually thought about how much time you spend on your phone every single day? Not like a quick glance, but really thinking about it. Because here's the thing, the average American is pushing close to 6 hours. Per Dalton Y of screen time, 6 hours, that is 3 months out of every single year staring at a little glass rectangle. Extrapolate that across 60 years of your life and you are looking at 15 years, 15 years. That is wild to even say out loud. And I am not sitting here judging anyone because I was one of the worst offenders. I would wake up, grab my phone, check Instagram before I even said good morning to myself. I would be on the subway scrolling through nothing. I would be at dinner with friends and my phone would be on the table face up waiting for that next notification like a little dopamine slot machine. And the worst part is I felt this weird guilt creeping in, like why am I on my phone so much? I do not even want to be on it this much, but I kept doing it anyway. So I had this crazy idea. What if I just stopped? What if I locked my phone away completely and replaced it with a notebook for 30 days? Spoiler alert, I did not make it the full 30 days. I made it 14, but those 14 days taught me more about myself than I expected, and I want to share all of it with you. Now, let me give you some background real quick. I was born in the 90s, so for the majority of my life, smartphones have just been there. I barely remember a time without one. I mean, I remember using MapQuest to print out directions for road trips, but that is about it. And when you think about it that way, it is kind of crazy. There have been about 117 billion people who have ever lived on Earth over the last 2,000 years. Of those 117 billion, only about 5 or 6 billion have ever used a smartphone. That means 96% of the human population lived their entire lives without a phone. And they figured it out. They found their way places, they talked to people, they fell in love, they built businesses, they raised families, all without a device in their pocket, buzzing every 30 seconds. So maybe this experiment was not as crazy as I thought. The rules were simple. I locked my phone away in a drawer at home. I did not touch it for anything. No Instagram, no YouTube, no maps, no texting, no calls, nothing. And I carried around a small notebook in my pocket everywhere I went. Because here is the thing. Your brain is this massive web of thoughts and ideas and to-do lists and random memories, and without a place to dump that stuff, it just rattles around in your head, driving you crazy. So I bought a pack of small notebooks on Amazon, and I kept one on me at all times. Whenever I had a thought, I wrote it down. Whenever I needed to remember something, I wrote it down, and that simple act of writing things down instead of typing them into my phone changed the way I processed information. It slowed me down, it made me think more intentionally. So here's what I learned. I am going to break this down into 3 big takeaways and a couple of downsides because I want to keep it real with you. The first thing I noticed hit me almost immediately. It was this incredible sense of freedom. Like I cannot even describe it properly. You know that feeling when you leave your house and you realize you forgot your phone, and for a split second you panic. You start patting your pockets. Your heart rate goes up a little. You worry about who is trying to reach you. You worry about how you will get home. You worry about everything. That panic is real. I have felt it 100 times. But when I made the active decision to not have my phone on me, that panic disappeared completely. It was like someone lifted a weight off my shoulders that I did not even know I was carrying. When your phone is at 2% battery and you are scrambling to find a charger, you feel that same panic. But when you just leave the phone at home, you do not have that stress at all. You just exist. You walk down the street and you look at the buildings, you notice the sky, you notice the way the light hits the trees, you notice people. And that was the biggest surprise for me, how much of the world I had been missing because my face was buried in a screen. The second thing I learned was way more profound than I expected. It is okay to be bored. Actually, it is more than okay. It is necessary. Think about it. When was the last time you just sat somewhere and let your mind wander? I mean, truly wander. Not reaching for your phone to fill every single empty second. Today, we are terrified of downtime. We are on the subway waiting for our stop, and instead of just sitting there daydreaming, we pull out our phones and scroll through LinkedIn messages or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. We fill every single gap in our day with digital noise, and I think that is a huge problem that nobody really talks about. When you never allow yourself to be bored, you never allow your brain to make those creative connections. You never give yourself the space to think about your life where you are going, what you really want. I noticed this so clearly during those 2 weeks. When I was on the train, I would just sit there and look around. I would notice things about other people. I would notice little details about the city I had never seen before. And I would actually think about my goals, about my habits, about the kind of person I want to be. And that is something you just cannot do when you are constantly feeding your brain with content. So the biggest lesson from all of this was that boredom is not something to escape. It is something to embrace. It is where clarity comes from. The third thing I learned was about dopamine. And I am not going to get all scientific on you because I am just a regular guy, not a neuroscientist. But I do know this. We are constantly chasing little hits of dopamine all day long. Every notification, every new comment, every little red badge on an app icon gives us a tiny rush. And we have trained our brains to expect that rush constantly. So when you take away the phone, you take away all those little dopamine hits. And at first it feels uncomfortable. Your brain almost starts craving it. But after a few days, something shifts. You start to find satisfaction in other things, in conversations, in quiet moments, in actually finishing a task without checking your phone 12 times. And that feeling of calm that comes from not constantly seeking gratification is honestly better than any dopamine hit I ever got from my phone. Now, I am not going to lie to you and pretend it was all sunshine and rainbows. There were some major roadblocks, and I want to be real about those too. The biggest problem was that I got lost constantly. I mean, constantly I had to memorize directions before I left the house. I would write down turn-by-turn instructions in my notebook, and I would still mess them up. I ended up at gas stations asking strangers for directions. People looked at me like I had 3 heads. One guy was like, "Why do not you just look it up on your phone?" And I was like, "Oh, my phone is dead." It was funny at first, but it also showed me how dependent I have become on something as simple as a map app. Another problem was that I almost missed my Amtrak train. I had bought my ticket online on my computer, and I got to the station and realized I had no way to pull up the ticket, no phone, no printer at home. So I had to go to the ticket counter and explain the situation, and they printed it for me, but I cut it way too close. That was stressful. And honestly, I think within the next 10 years, it is going to be almost impossible to run an experiment like this. Cash is disappearing, physical credit cards are going away, everything is moving to tap your phone to pay. You cannot even flag down a taxi anymore. You have to use Uber, so you can do this in 2024, but try doing it in 2034. It might not even be possible. That is actually kind of scary to think about. But here's the thing, even with all those problems, I am proud of myself for making it 14 days. I was shooting for 30 and I fell short. I had to go down to Texas to rent a car and handle some stuff, and it just became logistically impossible to not have a phone. But those 2 weeks changed my relationship with technology permanently. And that brings me to where I am now. I do not think the solution is to completely stop using your phone. That is not realistic, and honestly, it is not even necessary. We live in a world where we need these devices to function in society. But what I have done is build systems that help me use my phone as a tool instead of letting it use me. I went back to some of the old tricks I used before this experiment, like grayscale mode on my screen, which makes everything less visually stimulating. I turned off all notifications except for calls and texts from people I actually know. I started using a physical locking cookie jar for my phone when I need to focus, and I found this company called ClearSpace that has honestly been a game changer. I am not sponsored by them. I just genuinely like the product. We actually invested a small amount into them through our venture fund because I believe in what they are doing. What ClearSpace does is pretty simple. When you try to open an app, it makes you wait about 15 seconds. And in those 15 seconds, you have to ask yourself, do I really need to open this app right now? Most of the time, the answer is no, and you just put your phone down. That little friction point has reduced my screen time from about 4 hours a day down to 90 minutes. 90 minutes that freed up over 2 hours of my life every single day. Think about what you could do with an extra 2 hours every day. Read a book, work out, learn a skill, start a side hustle, spend time with people you love. That time adds up fast. And I think that is really the core of what I want to say here. This is not about being anti-technology. It is about being intentional with your time. And time is the one thing you cannot make more of. You cannot earn it back. You cannot save it for later. Every hour you spend scrolling is an hour you are never getting back, and that is the same mindset I apply to money and to life. In general, your 20s are this incredibly valuable window where you have energy, time, and flexibility. And if you waste those years numbing out on your phone, you are going to wake up at 30 wondering where the time went. So I urge you to try your own version of this experiment. Maybe you do not have to go 2 weeks without a phone. Start with one day, one Sunday, put your phone in a drawer and see what happens. You might get bored, you might feel uncomfortable, but you might also learn something about yourself that you did not expect. If you have any thoughts or questions about this, leave them in the comments. I read every single one and I love hearing from you guys. And if you want to see the video I am working on about how I reduce my screen time from 4 hours a day to 90 minutes, keep an eye out for that in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate all the support, and I will see everybody in the next one. Peace.